I come out here into what's a bit of a country environment, only to meet a guy that innovates electric cars, dreams of flying cars. And guess what? He now owns an electric car charging station. Not one, many car charging stations. My guest is Winston Jordan. This is really, really cool. Come up with me.
About 20 years ago, who'd have imagined that South Africa would one day have an electric vehicle market? As countries around the world look to mitigate the impact of climate change, reduce carbon emission, more and more consumers are showing interest in electric vehicles. One man spotted an opportunity to manufacture and install charging stations for eco-conscious drivers. Let's find out more.
Let's start with where on earth did this journey begin? And then we'll get to the sad reality of the load shedding.
Yeah. So for me, it started 25 years ago, where I was looking at trying to build a vehicle at that stage and see where can we go. That's where the name Grid Cars came from. So the idea was looking at, can we build an electric vehicle locally in South Africa? But I came to the realization at some point that it takes a lot of money to develop a vehicle from scratch and to take it into production and all of those sort of things. And as we moved, we found that we started to see a niche in the charging space where the OEMs, the big vehicle manufacturers, are not necessarily wanting to invest in that infrastructure long term. In the short term, yes, they definitely find creative ways of getting involved in the industry to help to promote it and get it out there and help it expand. But at some point, it'll be an industry that's going to live on its own. And we could see that niche probably around 2012, that we then started to move our business, our focus towards that. But that real focus for us came in about 2017, where we decided to stop all projects that we were doing that had vehicles, doing vehicle development projects, and to really just focus on the core services within electric mobility, which for us is back office, so the payment, management, all those back-end systems that you don't necessarily see, but they just make your life easy. And then the right technology on the ground, so the quality, the right type of hardware that has the right features, the right capabilities, and then deploying a network that people can come and buy their cars, use the network, drive to Cape Town, drive to Durban, travel all over the country. And that really pivoted in where the business went. And that's where we are today. We're very focused in those two areas.
But I mean, as you said, the growth has been slow. That must mean a lot to your business and your business plan. So you anticipate that this is going to move in a certain pace, at a certain pace, and it doesn't quite go that way. How much did that change your business model?
Look, I think we're in an entrepreneurial business, so our business model changes daily.
Every day.
So, and if it doesn't, well, then something's wrong. So it was a slow evolution for us. As I said, that big pivot came for us around 2017. There was a commercial deal came on the table, and they took majority shares in the company. And basically what happened was that gave us access to funding.
Okay.
So we could then access funding, and that allowed us, along with SolarF, the company that purchased the majority share, to be able to deploy out more aggressively. They're a solar-based company, so that even helped us build resilience in some cases. It helped to put the right drive out there to say electric vehicles should be charged with renewable energy wherever possible.
Gotcha.
You understand? And anybody who's generating solar needs to find places to save and use that energy. So it really meant that the business as a unit worked well.
So what other renewables are you using? It's solar and?
So as a charger, we don't really mind. As far as we're concerned, electricity is electricity. Whether that electricity comes from a battery, a generator, from Eskom or from solar, it doesn't really matter. Me as a person, I might have a preference to say, if it's solar, I'll make an extra effort to go and charge where there's solar, just simply because it makes more sense. So, or maybe not even solar, just renewable energy. So whether that's wind or geothermals or whatever we're going to harvest in South Africa. And I think that to me is the important part is, try to make the decisions where you charge where you're on renewables as far as possible, but it's not an absolute requirement. We're cleaner as an electric vehicle than what a petrol vehicle would be anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
There is no way you grew up dreaming of having, EV stations around the country or building cars, or was it that? Did you wake up one day and think, you know what, I just want to build cars?
It was probably worse than that.
What was it?
So through my schooling, which would be the 70s and 80s,
Yes.
to show
Don't
my age.
tell us too much.
Okay, stop right there. But I was dreaming of building flying cars.
Okay.
So I actually took a more realistic view of the industry and stepped back a little bit and said, okay, wait a minute, these flying car things are not going to happen in my lifetime easily. And if we look now, the technology that we're seeing in drones and things like that, that was that vision. But we would have spent a huge amount of time, and it's only coming in now. So I honestly feel, it was part of an evolution. We made the right decisions at the right time, in my own mind, and we had a lot of fun.
When does an entrepreneur like yourself get to feel the nod inside before you have the courage to tell everybody else about the flying car, for instance? Because, and I say that because the work that you do is innovative in its nature, right? Yeah. So you innovate in your mind, in your head, and so on. People don't really quite sometimes understand what you're saying. Yeah. They think they get it, but they don't really understand it. And that's the trick, right? To get people to understand the idea, the big idea.
Yeah. It's a very good question, because I can say that certainly at school I probably made the mistake once or twice of saying I was dreaming of building flying cars, and I never made it again. Yeah. And you learn very quickly how to keep those ideas to yourself and work with that. I think once I got to varsity, I sort of started getting in, I was more than a teenager now, so in my early 20s, I don't care what you think of me anymore. And I think a lot of that became more bold. I was still looking at the flying car technologies at that stage, but then I could see more realistically as well. I realized, I've got to build on something that we can realize, that's achievable, and achievable within the means that I had at that point. The biggest change for me actually came fairly recently. When we had the buyout from SolarF, one of the big discussions was, as an entrepreneur, around focus. So we might have had 10 or 15 projects running at the time, and part of the condition was, we'll join you, we'll help you with funding, we'll help build relevance to your business, we'll bring some extra good expertise into it, because we now suddenly had a bigger company that was working closely with us, with hardcore technology people, and people that really understood how to have these things. But you have to learn to focus, and it really was hard. I admit, I know it was, but I don't regret it for a second. I think once that decision was taken to say, all right, let's trim off all these projects, let's focus down to 3 core areas, the back office software, the deployment of hardware, and the sale or management and support of hardware. Yeah. So fairly focused little string. Yeah. And that really made a difference for us, because it meant we could become really good at doing it. It meant we could put all of our effort, our focus, our investment into that, and ultimately, allow it to bring us forward in the industry.
And the big thing, of course, you are still in business, right? So of course you'd love to innovate, but you're in business.
Absolutely.
And the orders must come in.
Yeah.
The business must actually happen.
Exactly. Yeah. No, for sure. So it's definitely, I think we were lucky in that we were the only ones doing it at one point. Well, not anymore. There are 3 people entering the space now, but certainly in the beginning we were the only ones. So it meant that we very quickly had the baptisms of fire, where, before I knew what I was doing, I was in meetings with top people in companies like Jaguar, which I'd probably never dreamt of in my life at the time. And the next thing, I was in a meeting in the UK, meeting with Jaguar people and talking about how their rollout of technology went and how are we going to do differently in South Africa. And it was amazing. You suddenly felt we've got relevance now. People are trusting what we're doing and where we're going. And as those relationships evolve through other manufacturers, we've seen that accelerating, that we really can leverage that.
I know you're not building flying cars, but I mean, it sounds pretty much like you are living the dream of, dreaming up these fantastical ideas, things that we watch in the movies, and having the privilege to actually try. And meet the people, by the way, who can also help you make it happen.
Absolutely, yeah. No, definitely. I've been quoted many times saying I've never worked a day in my life.
Wow.
This is just what I enjoy doing. It's amazing, and there's a strong team around. And if I look at all the team members that we've got in the company, they're all passionate about what we do. They're all passionate about the technology. They're all, we'd have. Let's keep take a simple example and say we have somebody who is working on the call center, and they start working and they say, all right, so what's my job title? And, my call center operator. I said, no, you're a mobility operator.
Wow.
They said, what is a mobility operator? I said, I don't know. We're trying to work it out. But it's a new type of job. Everything you thought you might know about running a call center, this is totally different. We're going to have to learn those things, and we'll be the ones pioneering that new job. And I think everyone in the company feels that their job is now to ensure that the definition of this job, even though you are a project manager, it's now a mobility project manager. If you're an engineer, you're a charge point engineer.
Yeah.
You're an engineer in charging technology, and there's different responsibilities that come with it. And when you see the team grasp that and drive that, that to me is amazing, because then they're taking that dream forward themselves.
And so what does it take to keep a team like this together, of innovators really? Because I assume you've got to think like an innovator in your space. How do you keep them motivated?
Sure. I hope to believe I've got it right. So, and that is, I think you've got to give them the freedom, to do a lot of stuff and to lead in their spaces. So don't try to push everything the way you want to do it. Quite a few years ago, I had a software developer working for me, still works for me today, and he's been working for me for quite a few years, probably. He'll shoot me now, but maybe 12 or 15 years, that long. And, there was a time after he'd been with me for about 7 or 8 years that I started realizing, we differ in certain things, but the difference is okay. He might not do something the way I want to do it, but it's just two right ways of doing it. It's not that there's a right way and a wrong way, and I can't conclusively tell you my way is better. So I think that took quite a bit for me to sort of let go of. And as part of that, I think if you can carry that message in to a team that allows them, the freedom to do certain things. There are times you've got to get in and say, sorry guys, this is how it's going to be done. And, whether that's just because you really want something in that particular way, or whether you feel that the team is not getting a lock in on the right process. But I think the biggest part of this actually comes from the team members themselves being passionate about where we're going, and wanting to drive the technology, wanting to provide that level of service to the OEMs, because they put a lot of pressure on us, deliver in this way and in that way. They've got their expectations, and they're high.
So, it must be fun. You say you never worked a day in your life. You innovate every day. You dream up wonderful things. You play with cars. Men would love to do what you do.
As long as they're electric.
Does the money matter?
Well, it certainly doesn't, because I wouldn't be here if it did. So, I think the money is always going to be important. Without any doubt, it's important at some point. But if the money is what's driving your decisions, I think it's a lot harder to succeed at that innovation level. I'd like to believe that the money is inevitable. It doesn't have to be billions. But what I think is that, if you build a solid business that the people believe in, and over time it will get to the point of success. Something like charging, we're reliant on getting a certain amount of charging hours per day in order for the network to be profitable. We're a long way off on that, but the industry's got to evolve, and we're now seeing, over the last, we sold 1,500 vehicles in the last 10 years, or electric vehicles, or 8 years. We're very likely going to double the number of vehicles that we sold in the next 12 months. I say very likely. Everybody's guessing. We don't know what that is, but that's a big swing. So we're starting to see the uptake where people, I think more and more people are realizing that, wait a minute, this electric thing is not going to go away.
As somebody who innovates, I suppose failure comes with the territory. You accept the fact that you got to keep trying and trying and trying again until you hit the mark. And sometimes it takes a long, long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't know what I can say on that. It's, in general, we've worked through a lot of projects. I was talking earlier and said that, there've been various pivots in the business. If I go back and try to really pin down, maybe 5 or 6 that were material, that, where we made a big decision that said, this isn't working. Let's try that. The biggest one being that we wanted to build cars. We're not building cars anymore. It was a big decision to look and say, we're not going to be able to do this. Unless we can find ways of raising huge amounts of money, it's not worth trying. Well, I'd say not worth trying, but maybe in the back of my mind, I still have an old, let's just say, kit car at home, and I've got an electric motor and some
Can I come
batteries.
visit your garage?
Oh, you can come and visit my garage. and the dream is still to have that car driving. So a few things have changed recently that just maybe we'll get it up and running. In the next year, it'll be worth driving. We can drive it around and say there's a home-built electric vehicle. But will I go into production? Not a chance.
Can I predict what's going to happen with you? You're going to retire quickly, go into the garage and make a flying car. Exactly.
There we go.
And then
Like
make a
it.
flying car.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
So, what do you wish you knew?
What do I wish I knew? Something I know today that I should have known earlier.
Yeah.
I think I wish I'd known people that were able to convince me that focus is a good idea. Because I was a stubborn entrepreneur, and I admit that. But I felt I was stubborn with good reason. That if somebody said to me, "Oh, you have to pick this or that," I'll say, "But why? If I'm investing, I don't pick that. I put them in a basket and I pick both of them. And I manage it." So I honestly felt that that's where it was. But when we had the buyout from the SolarF team, and we sat down and had where I could talk with people that were as passionate about the technology as what I am, but had already built a relatively successful business, and we could share ideas and explain. And I sort of finally grasped that focus is going to get some value, and certainly once we started focusing, the value was obvious. So maybe if I could go back in time 10 years and meet my past self, so listen, don't be so stubborn. Focus first, and maybe diversify later. Rather, because as you focus, you're able to bring the product to fruition much more effectively, because you focus in everything, not just your mind, but your resources, the people around you are focusing. It really makes a difference.
Tell you what, you've gained yourself a new customer.
Thank you very much.
So you and I are going shopping for a car now.
That sounds wonderful.
Thanks, Winston. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much for the time.